Hey everyone, it's Julian, and today we are taking a look at one of the most iconic sets of all time, Feg versus Potwasher in the Shadowverse World Grand Prix 2018. This is, to me, one of the best sets of Shadowverse of all time. This is a best of 5, 3 decks, 0 ban, and this is the grand finals of the World Grand Prix. That was basically the World Finals, the World Championships for this game back then. And this was a doozy. This was in the Omen of the 10 set meta. And I wanted to cover this because I talked about doing this sort of video before, but also we just got our Omen set, and it's a lot of fun to take a look at how some of those Omen cards worked back in the past. And this set was really interesting, and this meta was pretty interesting. And because you had to take 3 decks, we saw a large variety of decks. So let's take a look. We're only going to be covering the first game in this video, but if you guys really enjoy this type of video, please let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to talk more about this great, 5-game set or other great series in Shadowverse's history. I'm also planning on doing a sort of oral history of certain metas in Shadowverse that I've experienced. I thought that would be a fun way to introduce some new players into the old meta. This was really interesting for me in my story because I started playing this game about, I would say, a week after this took place. Actually, let's see, when did this, this was December 15th. So yeah, I started playing about a week after this. And I heard about the game in an ad, and I was like, oh, this sounds pretty cool. And I watched this. I wanted to watch some competitive stuff because I was looking for a competitive game. And I saw this series, this set, and I was like, oh my gosh, this game looks so awesome. I gotta play it. So we're going to be covering the first game, and it was a blood mirror match. And back then, this was Dark Feast Bat. I'm sure one of the most iconic blood decks of all time. You guys may have heard of it. And I will be covering a lot of these cards right now in this section to sort of give you an idea of how the deck plays. And then we're going to be watching the game. So I hope you guys enjoy. Let me know if you guys are excited for these type of videos. And again, if you want to see more, let me know in the comments. And let's get right into it. So this is Feg's list. The funny thing is, Feg and Potwasher's lists are almost identical, so we're going to be sort of just looking at this one and then briefly looking at Potwasher's list, but I'm going to be covering some of the big pieces of this deck. So Dark Feast Bat is, of course, the namesake of the deck. He was a 7 mana at one point, but then he got nerfed to an 8 mana, 5/5, and then on play he's going to deal X damage to an enemy, and X equals the number of times that your leader has been damaged during your turn in this match. So for people that have played Worlds Beyond, right, we see a lot of these cards that hit yourself, like Barrel, right? And we've had a lot of that before in Blood's history, but this was the first huge payoff that was a direct, win the game if you hit yourself enough times, and the goal was to try to hit yourself as much times, right? So Dark Feast Bat existed since Dawnbreak Night Edge, but really took off in this Omen of the 10 set because they got a plethora of new cards to use for hitting yourself and payoffs for hitting yourself. So let's talk about Valneric, of course. We just got Valneric and Rule Knight together, right? And in the original version, she was a 3-drop 1/3. On play, if Wrath is active for you, back then it was not called Wrath, it was if you hit yourself 7 times in the game on your turn, you gain +1/+1 and Storm, and you pop an enemy follower. And then at the start of your opponent's turn, if your leader took damage during your previous turn, you gain +1/+1. So basically, after you complete the quest, she's going to be coming down as a 2/4, popping something, swinging in, because she has Storm, and then when you pass, she's going to become a 3/5. Very strong card, and this deck was one of the most unique decks we've had in Shadowverse history, right? Obviously, we have sort of the big payoff, for hitting yourself in the Dark Feast Bat, but really back then, you couldn't hit yourself 20 times and not die and then just win the game on the spot, right? You really need to whittle them down a little bit because by turn 8, you might have 8, maybe 9 sort of procs on your hit yourself, right? On your Wrath, right? So Valneric was a very good card, but I think one of the biggest cards in this era for this deck, and also just sort of one of the most iconic power cards in Shadowverse is Floros. 4 mana, 5/3. He invocated. So invocation was a mechanic they added around this time, where when you do something, it's going to be summoned from the deck into play. So his invocation was, during your 3rd turn or later, when your leader takes damage, if it's the 4th time this turn, invoke this card. And then last words, he's going to heal you 3. So back in the day, when this card was first released, he had no turn limit. So people were turboing him out really fast, and it was pretty toxic, but then they nerfed it to turn 3. So he was your early game sort of tempo push, right? Because you basically get free value if you hit yourself 4 times. And a lot of the early game was built upon trying to get a turn where you can invoke Floros. And, of course, him healing is going to come up a lot in this game, because in the mirror match, you obviously want to try to hit yourself as much as possible, but because you're hitting yourself, you're getting down into their Dark Feast bat range. So having this card heal is really important. Another important thing is when he evolved and on Last Words, he's going to give you 5 health. So again, aggressively statted sort of free guy for just playing the game, right? But you do want to set up Floros turns pretty well. And of course, it feels bad when you just like raw draw him, right? That's a lot of invoke cards. So those I would say are the big like players of the deck. And then sort of some of the surrounding support, a lot of these cards, hit yourself and do things. We have Razor Claw, which is in Worlds Beyond Rage of Serpents. It works the exact same way. Blood Pact, which is a card I'd really love to see in Shadowverse Worlds Beyond. It's a draw 2 and then hit yourself for 2 mana. And then we have a couple other removal. We also have a really interesting card in the Wings of Lust. This is a card that comes up in the mirror match because, and just in general, it's a good card. So it's going to be 2 mana spell, give an allied follower +2/+2, and then that follower gains the following effect. At the end of your turn, deal 1 damage to your leader and this follower, and then on Enhance 4, it's going to gain Drain. So you can combo this pretty well with Valneric and heal a big chunk, right, especially if you evolve, and you're going to be able to hit yourself and Valneric, and then get that +1/+1 again from that Valneric effect, right? So it's a very good combo sort of with Valneric, right? And other cards as well, just getting +2/+2 is nice, right? Because again, the goal of the deck is to hit yourself so you can get Dark Feast Bat active and get it to 9 to 10 or something, but you also need to push that rest of damage at some point, right? And then, of course, we have, I don't think I brought this up on this tab, but then we have one of my favorite cards of all time, Vera, Knight Fanatic. Of course, this was from the Brigade of the Sky, the Grand Blue crossover set. She was a 2-drop 2/2, and she worked very well with this deck, and also in, like, blood decks until she rotated. She was just an insane card. So she was a 2-drop 2/2 vanilla, but on evolve, she gave your leader the following effect until the start of your next turn, or this follower leaves play. Reduce damage to your leader to 0, and then give this follower the following effect until the start of your next turn. Reduce damage taken by 2. So she evolves into a 4/4, and every time she takes damage, it's going to be reduced by 2, basically. And then she's going to give your leader kind of a shield to prevent damage to your leader, right? So you can pop off on certain turns where you go evolve Vera, swing into something, and she's probably going to live or only take 1 damage, right? Because she's going to -2 any damage that she takes. And then you can play all of your self-damaging things and not take damage on that turn because it gives you a shield. And then they have to deal with the Vera. A very strong blood card. And yeah, so that is sort of the deck. A lot of other, support sort of surrounding it. And we'll kind of take a look at Potwasher's version of the deck as well. I believe it's like what card for card. Yeah, here it is. It's like exactly the same because they're playing 2 Pure Hearted Singer and 2 Wings of Lust. But yeah, very interesting decks, and we're going to get into the game here in a second. I hope you guys enjoy. I'll talk to you guys there. All right, so here we are on the game. Again, one of the most famous sets of all time. I'm going to leave a link in the description for this whole video. This is the whole VOD of the tournament, and it does cut off a little bit, but very just iconic meta and era. In this tournament, they actually had to play Unlimited, which was really cool. That was when Unlimited wasn't just like a hellscape, right? It was mostly mid-range Shadow and some Control Haven with the Seraph, stuff like that. Pretty cool, interesting stuff. But this was a grueling tournament, right? This was the Grand Prix, right? So this was the World Grand Prix, and very long. But both of these players are actually still active, which is really cool. Potwasher streams on Twitch, and Feg, I saw him on the Shadowverse League, and I believe he still plays. I see tweets from him as well. So very, very cool that these two players still play. But let's start off. We are seeing Feg's perspective right now. So he's going second. And of course, the immediate thinking, right, is you want to go first because Dark Feast Bat is going to come down first, right? That's sort of the immediate thing. But we'll kind of see through this game that's not how it's going to play out a lot of times, especially at this high level, right? So Feg's going to go second, and we're going to see the opening hands here. Again, we're really looking, one of the sort of key things we're looking for is trying to get Flaros on that turn 3, right? So that's going to be hitting ourselves 4 times. It is possible, but it's a little bit hard. But that is a really nice tempo swing for Dark Feast Bat, right? So we're going to see the mulligans here. Potwasher has Vera, Alexandrite Demon, who is a card that gives you 2 different choices. You can take a card that draws you 2 cards, and then after 2 turns you hit yourself for 2, or you can take a, what does it do? Let me double check. Hold on. What does the second one do? Because it's taken a lot less. The Blazing Ruby destroys an enemy follower for 4, and then last words deal 2 damage to your leader. So most of the time, they're taking the Blazing Sapphire for some draw, right? But it is a little slow, right? Because it's like, you're playing this 2-1, which is fine. Again, this is a little bit slower than sort of we have right now with Shadowverse Worlds Beyond in terms of the game pace. So we can play these type of cards that like give us a card, and then, you know, but I would say this is most relatable to something like the 2-drop 2/2 Melvy, right, from Rune right now. So, and then we have the Evil Eye Demon, who is a 5-drop 5/4, and then she can clear the board a little bit, but she has an Accelerate 1 that hits you and deals some damage to an opponent follower. So, kind of an interesting hand, right? But then, Feg on the bottom here, we have the Alexandrite Demon, the Razor Claw, which he auto throws back, and then the Gift for Bloodkin, one of the more interesting cards in this deck. Gift for Bloodkin is a 0 cost, deal 1 damage to both leaders, and both players summon a 1/1 Forest Bat. And of course, back then, Forest Bats did not have Drain, they were just 1/1s, right? So, I do have it on a little bit higher speed just because we're going to be pausing a lot and stuff, right? So, he's going to throw Razor Claw back and get the Dark Feast Bat. Of course, that's a nice pickup, but like we said, it's not going to all come down to just playing it on curve in this sort of matchup, right? Dark Feast Bat is very similar to how I talk about Albert, right? Where he's not playable unless you're winning the game on that turn. So we see Potwasher throw Vera back. I'd be interested to know if he would have kept Vera if he was going second, right? Because, of course, Vera doesn't do anything unless you have an evolve point, right? And being able to evolve on early on the going second, right, on your 4 is pretty nice. So we draw the Restless Parish, and Restless Parish was a 0-cost amulet that drew your card. Let me bring this one up because it has a lot of text here. So 0 cost, and then if you play it for 0, it's going to have countdown 1, on play, deal 1 damage to your leader, and then last words, draw a card. And then if you have at least 2 play points, you can turn it into Nightfall, which was a countdown 2. At the end of your opponent's turn, summon a Forest Bat, so that basically gave the Bat Storm, right, because it'd be the end of your opponent's turn. And then the other one, Madness Revealed, which comes up a lot, actually, in this matchup and in this deck. Deal 4 damage, countdown 1, deal 4 damage to your leader, and last words, heal 8 defense to your leader. So of course, combined with a card like Vera, you can negate that 4 damage and in a turn get 8 health back, which is a lot, right? And Blood back then was kind of known for a lot of healing. Of course, in a couple sets, it was going to get one of the best healing cards ever in the core, the Blood core, that when you evolved healed you 10. But yeah, so that is the Restless Parish. So overall, we're looking at an interesting hand. No one's able to like summon Floros on 3 yet, but then we draw into the Vera and Evil Eye Demon again. So Potwasher is going to develop the Alexandrite Demon. He, of course, had an option to just play Blood Pact, which would be basically the same card as the Sapphire Amulet, right? But you want to develop the board. You're going first, push your tempo, right? Get some early game chip damage, right? Because what we were talking about was can't expect to get to 20 on the Dark Feast bet, right? So then he's kind of debating playing the Restless Parish. This is because he can play it now, draw some cards and stuff, and start that, hitting yourself engine right now. Or he can maybe hope he draws into some stuff for the Floros Invocation. So then Feg's going to draw Blood Pact. He's going to make the same play out the Alexandrite Demon, take the draw Amulet. And then this is the first turn where theoretically you could invoke Floros, right? Because he has that turn 3 limit, or sort of minimum he has to be at to be invoked. But right now, of course, I thought Evil Eye Demon was 1 mana, but it's 2 mana. I think hit yourself 1 and deal 3. Let me just look that up. Evil Eye Demon. Yeah, so accelerate 2, deal 1 damage to your leader and 3 damage to an enemy follower, right? So right now we can't get the Floros, right? Because we need to hit ourselves 4 times. That's also where the Alexandrite Demon Amulet can come into play, where you can sort of draw your cards and then set up this self-damage, this self-ping on a turn and only need to hit it 3 more times, right? So, kind of a hard turn, right, for Potwasher. We can draw some cards, or we can try to kill the Alexandrite Demon. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to Evil Eye Demon, kill the Alexandrite, and push some more face damage, push some tempo. And now Feg has an interesting decision here, too. He obviously doesn't have any bodies on the board, right? And his hand is not looking amazing to summon Floros anytime soon. But if he sets up that Sapphire, he's going to, like I said, get that early proc. So maybe around turn 5, he can do 3 hits and then make a Floros, right? And then VR you really want to save for an Evo turn, right? So this could just be an Evil Eye Demon, kill the 2-1, and then pass. But he's instead going to play the Snarling Chains. So the Snarling Chains was a 2 mana, deal 1 damage to both leaders, and then deal 3 damage to a follower, right? So then Potwasher is going to draw the Servant of Lust. Servant of Lust is a really interesting card. I do want to bring him up. He was a great supporting card. He was a 2-drop 4/2, so like, whoa, crazy stats, right? But there's a catch. So on play, he's going to deal 1 damage to your leader, and then during your turn, whenever this follower attacks the enemy leader, restore 2 defense to both leaders after damage is dealt. So he was kind of basically a 2/2, and you swing face for 4, and then he heals 2, but you heal 2 as well. So it is a little bit of healing. A very unique card in this sort of game. And I really like the Servant of Lust. There's a lot of stuff you could do with him. So he's going to go for the Sapphire Amulet to draw some cards. And then he's going to go for a Blood Pact to draw even more cards. So now Potwasher has a gigantic hand, right? And we're still not looking like we're going to be able to summon Floros unless we top deck like a Restless Parish. Because we could go Servant, Restless Parish, Evil Eye Demon, and then another Restless Parish or a Summon Bloodkin, something like that. But of course, Feg here, sort of similar situation. We have the Blazing Sapphire, the Razory Claw, the Blood Pact. So we might just do the exact same play where we draw 4 cards, basically. But we could Vera as well to set up some of that stuff. But saving the Vera to sort of, make a big push with like a Vera and a Floros turn is really, really strong. So I think he might end up taking it slow here, drawing some cards. That's what we're going to do here first, and we draw the Restless Parish. So now we're looking at a turn here soon where we can summon Floros. So probably next turn we can go Vera. Well, I guess we can't because we'll be at 5, right? But whenever that Alexandrite Amulet pops, we're going to easily be able to summon him. But it'd be great if we could summon him next turn if we draw something like another 0 cost or even a 1 cost hit yourself, right? A 1 cost thing. So now he's kind of debating what he wants to do here. Valderic, of course, in the hand. That's a very strong card to have. So we have 2 play points. We could draw some more cards. We would burn 1 on the next turn, right? We could Razor Claw his face. That feels a little rough. But it does feel kind of bad just passing. So it is actually a really hard turn for Feg. But let's see what he ends up doing. I think he might just end up Razor Clawing the face. Or he's just going to pass. Because, yeah, like we said, all of those choices were not amazing. We don't really want to waste our Razor Claw. Especially because the deck kind of low-key has a lot of healing. So dealing 3 damage when that could be used for removal or other things is really nice. Or, of course, a Floros Invocation, right? So now Potwasher drew a Razor Claw. And, again, he's at 5. So we're still not able to get the Floros. But next turn, once the Alexandrite Amulet pops, we're going to easily be able to. So right now, it's probably going to be trying to set up a nice board that Feg has to deal with. Because, of course, we have a giant hand, right? We don't really need to go fishing for some more stuff. And then make it harder on him to summon Floros on this next turn, right? That Feg wants to do. So I would expect sort of like a Servant of Lust, maybe both of them, perhaps. But, of course, that is a really nice way to expand your board with Floros instead of sort of playing a bunch of these spells to summon Floros. So this might also be like a Razor Claw or something. It's so funny watching these old games and how old the game like looks, you know, like all of the numbers and everything. Okay, so he's gonna go. Wow, that was interesting. I guess he had the second Vera, so that kind of makes sense. But he's gonna go Servant of Lust and then Vera. Vera, of course, is a very strong tool in this matchup and in this deck. But you only have 2 Evo points, right? Remember, like total. So. Of course, we have other stuff we'd like to Evo. Vera is, of course, the #1 card we want to Evo. And in a weird way, is kind of a bigger threat than the Servant of Lust, right? Because if you can just Evo her without playing the one from hand, you get a lot more play points to play with to get that Floros Evoke and just in general, right? So, pretty nice play. I like playing the Vera out and just having this like threat that you do kind of have to deal with. You can't ignore it, right? So this turn, Feg draws Blood Pact, and this has to be sort of the turn to summon Floros. I'd imagine you have Vera, you have double 0 cost, and you have a bunch of other 2 drops to hit yourself. So I can imagine just being something like Vera Evo, get your shield, right? And then you're going to like Razor Claw the 4/2, and then hit into Vera, and then like Gift for Bloodkin, Restless Parish, and summon Floros, and then sort of go from there, right? But let's see what he decides to do. Especially if you're able to summon Floros this turn, you might have an easy way to summon Floros next turn as well, because that Alexandrite Demon proc is going to happen next turn. So that is what I'm looking at, but of course, you know, I'm not a pro. So it looks like we're going Razor Claw, Evil Eye Demon, Restless Parish, Gift for Bloodkin, summon the Floros, and then Evo the Floros, because again, when we Evo, he's going to heal us 5. And clear the 1/1. So this was pretty interesting. We want to keep the Vera, I guess, which does make sense. I mean, Vera is just a really, really strong card. And if we have a way to summon it without doing Vera, that makes sense. So now, of course, the Alexandrite Demon proc for Potwasher. So this is going to be an easy invoke. You could go anything, right? Double Servant, Vera, Restless Parish, or obviously you'd Vera first. But it looks like we're going to hold the Vera as well. Could go Evil Eye Demon, Razor Claw. That's pretty interesting. So Evil Eye Demon, Razor Claw on the Floros, and then our Floros is going to come out, right? And we're going to Evo our Floros. And again, we're at 8, but we're going to heal 5 once Floros goes away. So you can see sort of the back and forth of this matchup that makes it really interesting because, again, if we had Dark Feast Bat here and we're at 8, it's like, oh, you're hosed, right? But because of the way the board is and we're still waiting 2 turns for that Dark Feast Bat to come up, there's a little more intricacy. So we're going to draw, he's snapping his fingers. We're going to draw Vera and Pure Hearted Singer, or we just drew Pure Hearted Singer. I couldn't tell. But we have Vera and we got the Alexandrite proc, right? But unfortunately, unless we draw into something with the Blood Pact, we can't actually summon Floros here. So this is pretty rough for Feg here. So I'm not exactly sure what Valneric is at. Unfortunately, the way this game was back then is there was no log. That was a really nice addition. Okay, wow, that was a great draw. So he's going to go Blood Pact, and then he draws into a 0 cost so we can get Floros. But again, this board is a little rough, right? We don't have a ton of removal, and it looks like Valneric is active now, which means he could play Valneric, pop something, and then maybe like trade into the 4-2, which feels really bad because Valneric gets Storm, right? So really interesting turn here for Feg. Let's see how he plays it out. Pure Hearted Singer, of course, by the way, is one of the most famous cards in the game as well. 3-drop 1/2 neutral. On play, draw a card, and when it dies, it draws a card. He is kind of running out of time here, too. This might end up being the play, is trade into the... Yep, that was the play, is Valneric kill the Floros, trade into the 4-2. That was a really rough play for Feg. Unfortunately, he did just kind of have to make that. The time was going down as well. But that was just an awkward turn, right? No removal, and it makes sense now why he kept that Razor Claw on that turn 4, right? Because... he didn't, he was like, well, I kind of need this removal, and he did, and he still didn't draw more removal, right? So, pretty good thinking from there, but of course, did miss out on that storm damage, which is pretty unfortunate. So now, Potwasher is going to have a pretty interesting turn. His hand is not looking amazing. He can't do a Floros Invoke, and he is, I believe they click on this here soon, to see what the Dark Feast Bat is at. He's going to go Demon... what's the name? Evil Demon Eye? I already forgot her name. But just kind of build the board out, right? Go 5-4, 4-2, and then draw some cards with the Restless Parish. So, of course, Potwasher, remember... At the beginning of the game, he was at like 9 cards, and now he's already down to 3. So this is, kind of a deck that plays a ton of cards in each turn, right? So now we're on 7 for Feg, and we have, 1, 2, 3. We have about 3 procs for, our hit ourselves, right? This feels like the turn, this feels like the turn to Vera. If we're not going to Vera, when are we going to do it? So we're going to Blood Pact, draw some cards. We get Wings of Lust, and we draw a Floros, which always feels bad, because we really want him to just be in the deck, right? And then we can... It's just a really awkward turn, right? We have his Dark Feast Bat is at 8, which is important, and you can kind of see, like, wow, that's not a ton, right? You still need to get some extra damage in before you can play it, and like I said, it's kind of like Albert, right, where you can't just go all in because most of the time they try to create a board, right? And that's kind of what Potwasher is doing, is obviously this wasn't the Dark Feast Bat turn, but sort of create a board where you can't just raw Dark Feast Bat and feel like you won't die. So... the goal is to try to get some more stuff up for Dark Feast Bat. But of course, we're going to end up playing the really interesting card that I talked about, right? The Restless Parish sort of evolution or choose card, where it's going to deal us 4 damage and then heal 8 on last words. But because we have Vera Shield, we don't take any damage. So it's just basically a net 8 health. So very, very cool. Very interesting. So now he kind of knows, I'm sure he's been counting, like, back then, I kind of told my Discord the other day about how back in the day they didn't really let you take notes and stuff. So a lot of people would count like fairies and stuff on their hands, and I'm sure they're kind of keeping in their heads how many times they've been or their opponents hit themselves, because back then, I believe back then you couldn't see how many times your opponent hit yourself. But they added that later. They added like this log of a bunch of stuff that like how we can see rally, right? kind of like that. That was a late addition to Shadowverse. So Potwasher's Dark Feast Bat is at 9, of course. Pretty nice, but again, we got to get through that 4 damage, and he's going to basically heal back to 20, which is pretty rough. And also, Potwasher's hand is not looking amazing, right? So he's going to go Alexandrite Demon, draw 2. So that was basically 4 mana, but this Vera will be cleared pretty easily, either with an Evo Point or just swinging the Servant of Lust in. And he's going to end up drawing the second Dark Feast Bat and the Razor Claw. So at this point, you'd love to see, as Potwasher, like an opening to maybe play Dark Feast Bat and not get super punished for it, but that probably won't end up happening, right? So, nope, that was weird. Snarling Chains is going to come down. Of course, that's the deal 3 and then deal 1 to both leaders. And then we're going to swing face. I think he's debating evolving the Servant of Lust, maybe, or he's just debating playing down the Vera or the Razor Claw. So, now we have a really interesting decision by Feg, because, of course, like I said, we created this board to not just let him be able to just play Dark Feast Bat on a free board, right? So, as Feg, we're going to have to try to create our own board and remove his board, right? So, Floros looks really nice here, but the issue is Floros is going to heal 3 when it dies, but we're at 19, so we're going to need to combine it with some hitting ourselves, but then if we hit ourselves without Floros dying, we get into some, kind of scary waters here, right? So let's see how this turn is going to play out by Feg. He kind of has like a blankie. I love that. So Floros is going to come down just because it's like, hey, I got to get this out of my hand, right? And still represents a lot of damage. That's like a quarter of total health in the game, right? And then the Vera is looking interesting, too. We could use our last Evo Point, clear some stuff. So, yeah, that's what it's going to look like. And then Wings of Lust on the Vera make this a 6/6 with the barrier and all of that, nice stuff, right? So, Potwasher is going to draw the Valneric. He's played this turn really fast. So, he's going to draw the Valneric. He's going to go Vera Evo. I wish they'd click off the Valneric here. Vera Evo, and then he's going to play Valneric, kill the Vera. That's like the easiest way to kill Vera, right, in the mirror match. And then Starling Blades, or Starling, what was it? Starling Chains, and then Razor Claw, and then push 4 more damage. So that was 8 damage total in 1 turn. And he denied the Floros heal, right, because the Floros healed only 2, right? Because the Starling Chains, or did he use the Starling Chains on it? Hold on, let me back up and see. So he used Vera. Yeah, so Starling Chains came down, and then the Floros healed him 2. And so yeah, so basically put him down to 13. Crazy burst turn, right? But again, if Feg has any healing, it could get pretty rough for Potwasher because he only has 2 Dark Feast Bats in hand, right? And he's at kind of a scary health, right? So here comes Alexandrite with the Ruby, clear something, and then basically at that point, Feg's like, okay, I'm probably dead. I can't clear the board. And that is game 1 of this insane set. So, of course, it did exact damage, but he did have 4+2, so it was 19. But yeah, very interesting game, of course. Also, I just noticed this. Dark Feast Bat is like on the far left side here. Do you see that? I don't know if my cursor is picking up, but next to Potwasher's face cam, that's actually really funny glitch. I think it's because it won the game, if that makes sense, But yeah, very cool game. And yeah, that is going to be the video. Thank you guys for watching. If you want to see more of this set and any other games like this in the future, please let me know. I hope this was interesting. But if there's any other games you want to see, please let me know. But I just thought, like, hey, I kind of want to do some more content that is not directly me playing the game or sort of talking about the current game, but a lot of people want to know about the history of the game. And again, I will be sort of doing a video here soon, sort of like the oral history of certain metas. I will be talking about Ultra Sphere, the first meta I played in, and sort of my experience of it as a youngin, or as a Shadowverse youngin. So, hope you guys enjoyed. And thank you guys so much for watching, and I really appreciate it. If you're new here, subscribe. That'd be awesome. Of course, leave a like. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.